Hey, what's up guys? It's Pedro here from noobcoder.com, and in this tutorial we're going to be talking about some ES6 object literal enhancements. So to start off, we're just going to create a function, and this function is basically going to return an object literal, and it's going to create a person object. So I'm just going to say last name, and here return this, and we're just going to return an object literal. So the old way of doing this would actually be to have the property name, and then the property name assign it the value that we're going to be passing in. And here I would do the same for last name. But with ES6 I no longer have to do this. So a short-handed way of doing this would be to actually remove this and remove that, and now it's going to return what we expect. So if I was to say let person equal person, we could say Pedro and Mercado, and now if I was to print this out, let's save it, run it, and you can see that we get our object literal being returned from that function. All you need to remember is that the parameters that you have listed here have to match the property name. So first name matches the property first name, last name matches the property of last name, and JavaScript will automatically match it for you now, as opposed to actually saying first name like so. So that's one of the shortcuts that ES6 JavaScript gives us. But let's say that I want a method. So let's give this object literal a method. So let's say get full name. Now the old way of doing this would obviously be doing it like so. And then I could put this dot first name and this dot last name, and then basically that will get returned. But the way to do shortcuts with methods now is actually I could get rid of the function altogether, and I could just say get full name, and within here I could say this dot first name plus give it a space, this dot last name. And let's actually I don't want to return this. Let's just print this out. So now if I save this, and let's call it, so within here I'm just going to say person.get full name. Now let's save it now, head over to Chrome, and now run it. You can see that Pedro Mercado gets printed out. So you no longer need to specify the function keyword. You could just give it your method name, and everything would be good to go. So now I want to talk about dynamic fields within ES6. So we have our first name, last name property, and then we have our function property, our method get full name. But let's say I want a dynamic property. How would I do that? Well, I can use brackets, and then within here, let's go up here for a sec, and let's say random, and we could say math.random, and within here I can pass that into this bracket notation, and let's give it a value of 1 for example. And now let's save it, and now I'm just going to head over to Chrome, hit refresh, and now I want you to pay attention to our printout of our object literal. So here you can see that we have a dynamic field being created. So we have a property 3466734, and it has the value of 1. And you could pretty much do this for anything. So let's say that, for example, I want get full name to have a dynamic field name, for example. I have no idea why you would want to do that. But even for this, I could assign it random, and let's get rid of this. And this is probably going to give us an error because we're calling the get full name here, and get full name is not going to exist, but let's run it and see what we get. And you can see here we have a method, right? This is our method. It's called 0.9921349304 blah blah blah, and you can see that it is a function. So that's pretty much the basics of creating dynamic property names. But we can also evaluate expressions here in case this was not dynamic enough for you. So I can say plus, and I could say Pedro. And now this expression is actually going to get evaluated. So now if I save it and head over to Chrome, run it, you can see that now we have a property name within this object literal called 0.3974 blah blah blah, and you can see that Pedro has even gotten evaluated to it. Now let's actually fix this person.getFullName method that we're getting. So we have a random property name. So what can I do to access it since it's random? Well, let's actually move this let variable outside this function. And remember, because let is only defined within this function. So if I was to keep let in here, it wouldn't exist out here, so I could call it. So now let's say random. It's random plus Pedro, so I just copy this. And here within our person object, I can just say person, and then we have our brackets, pass in random plus Pedro, and now call the function. And let's save it. And now let's execute it. You can see that our getFullName method is working. So that's how we would access dynamically computed field names, our property names within our person object. This also works with regular property names. So if I was to give this last name a computed property name, you would still access it the same way. So it's not exclusive to methods, and I think you guys are pretty much getting the point at this junction.